Can I get a mic or a mic and a half? That the source owe me. Shout out to the editor staff. Yeah, I'm all grown, so much better with math. I need a spread in the Forbes, taking the Benjamin bath. Yeah, I'm serving this track like Steffi Graf. Yeah, Roger Federer, there's no competitor.
Urban Tennis, Episode 2. There's smoke on these courts. Welcome back. I'm your host, the author of A Man in His Racket blog on the Urban Tennis Network. I'll be joined by my co-host shortly. And today, let's go over the topics. The French Open just wrapped up, so we're going to be covering that both on the men's side and the women's side. We'll talk about Serena, Rafa. We'll go into what our expectations are of Novak Djokovic on the clay in the future. We'll also look into how social media and technology may be changing how we look at the tennis freakout on court. And we're going to end with a game of volleys and our social media highlight of the week. So let's get started. We knew on the women's side going in that there was a heavy favorite in Serena, and everything basically came true. But yet, there was still that thread, that narrative that carried us through those 2 weeks. Even in her dominance, it was compelling enough to watch. And by that final Saturday, in her match against Maria Sharapova, which was close, but yet comfortable, we knew that we were watching something and someone who had really, come to terms, with the greatness they have, and almost, single-handedly changed their on-court persona. Long gone is those negative outbursts of Serena's that dogged her in the 2009 and 2011 U.S. Opens. She was nicer. She's calmer. Her post-game matches or interviews are almost sedate. So I want to bring in my co-host. What do you think this change Serena has done, even tangentially, to her game and to her, to her results?
Well, I think the key thing she does is one commenter, I forgot the name, on Reddit brought up a good point. She's playing like a female Roger Federer. I mean, she's able to still bring her physical presence to the game and match up well against Maria Sharapova, like always. But she's still able to keep her cool like throughout the entire tournament, and she really showed that in the final. Like, he was able to control the match from beginning to end, just like Roger Federer at his best.
I agree, and it was almost, this was the proving ground. She had that loss to Sloane Stephens in the quarters of Australia, and that was something, I don't know if that was part of the story, but it's something you could see happening. But here, she was coming off that terrible loss in the first round of the 2012 French Open, and she really talked about how that she would be her worst enemy. And that's why I think it was amazing to see that she's really approaching matches much more, her confidence is still there, her determination is still there, but that the serenity around it. And some have suggested that it's her new coach, who's of French origin, or just the place where she is in her life after her health scare. But she really, is not beating herself, or it doesn't seem to us that she's beating herself like she was possibly in the past. So after winning, she's on this miraculous 31-game streak, and I thought it'd be a little fun to figure out, when do we think Serena's going to lose next? So when do you think Serena's going to lose next?
I don't think it'll be for a while. I think she'll win Wimbledon, and she'll win probably her next couple of tournaments. So I'm probably going to say, I'm saying in the middle, it's between the Wimbledon and the U.S. Open. She'll probably drop one match there. So I'm not totally sure. Could be Cincinnati, could be New Haven if she plays that. Could be, on the U.S. Open series. The Emirates U.S. Open series. Keep the sponsors happy.
Yeah, I'm gonna agree. I think she's really looking well going into Wimbledon, and I think somewhere before New York, whether it be like you were saying Cincinnati or Toronto, one of those tournaments she might, not mail it in, but one of those maybe that may be the opportunity where she does lose. Now to the men's draw, we had an equally impressive performance. Rafael Nadal became the first male tennis player to win 8 slams in any one slam in the Open era. And he improved his record to 59-1 on clay, and that only lost in 2009 to Robin Zarling. So we're big sports fans beyond tennis. Where do you think this record of 59-1 falls with other comparable sports records, or in the pantheon of other sports records?
Well, I think the most obvious one that comes to mind is in basketball. When we're looking at the Boston Celtics, I believe it was somewhere in the 1980s. I'm terrible at remembering statistics, but I do remember there was only one home loss that season. So just like you could say Roland Garros is like Nadal's home, one loss here, right? So it's a pretty similar record in that sense. And then, of course, you can also go into other big records like the Miami Dolphins going perfect throughout the season and winning the Super Bowl. And there's quite a few. I think it definitely ranks up there because it is impressive. I mean, clay is a very difficult surface to master and play on because you have to be the top of your game in so many different aspects.
Yeah, you brought up some like team examples, but you could also put it in the context of individual records, right? It's almost like a war of attrition, and so like marathon streaks, so like a Cal Ripken Jr. kind of streak where game in, match out, he's got to have that consistency where, you know, on any day a player can lose, but to only lose once in these last 9 years is incredible. We knew that the finals would most likely be fairly routine for Rafa over David Ferrer, who's making his first slam final. And that's why I guess the story to some became those, you know, disruptions. And that's kind of why this podcast is named There Will Be the Smoke. I see smoke on these courts. Talk about the flares and those protests, and really if they have or anything tennis directors, tournament directors can do to prevent that in the future.
Well, it's definitely a challenge to prevent, especially in France, where political dissension is just part of the culture, whether it be for right, left, whatever. Right? It's not about the actual issue they're protesting. I mean, protest is almost part of their culture. So, but there's a way that you have to ensure the player safety and the spectator safety. And flares, while typically not a huge explosive, can cause problems for people sitting in the crowds, people on the players on the court. I mean, we've seen it in the worst of some soccer hooliganism where the flares have been thrown at players. So it's definitely an issue that needs to be addressed. I'm not totally sure of how they address it because I don't work for Blackwater personal security. So
exactly, and I think the staff at Roland Garros did a good job protecting and shielding Rafa Nadal. But I think in tennis, it's going to be put under the microscope more so than any other sport. Just basically, it's the 20th anniversary of Monica Seles and the fan who got on court and stabbed her. So, you know, I think when anybody comes on court like that, whether it be that fan that tried to put a hat on Roger Federer a few years back in Paris, you instantly think the worst. And I think whether they try to address it in the future, it's an unfortunate event, but I think in tennis you always have to bring light to it. Before the finals, we probably had the match of the tournament, which was that 5-set thriller between Rafa and Novak. And it was kind of unfortunate that one of them had to lose, especially in the semis. But in this case, it was Novak. I think we can safely say that Novak is probably the second best clay court player out there right now. And in years past, that was Roger Federer. And Roger Federer actually ended up winning his French Open in a year that Rafa didn't win. So I'm going to ask this question. Do you think Novak, first, will win a French Open and complete the slam, career slam? And does that title come sooner or later?
I'm going to go with the sooner. I'm just saying because a lot of people could say, oh, he just ran out. He can't beat Nadal. He's pushed him to the limit, and he still couldn't get over the hump. But I think it's more like Nadal may only be 1 year older than Djokovic, but Nadal is a little more, he's run through a little more of his batteries, if you know what I mean, right? So I think Djokovic will be able to beat Nadal at one point. And then of course there's gonna be certain tournaments where Nadal will not be there. Like that could easily happen within the next 2 years. So I think Djokovic, I think we'll see his name on that on the jug within the next 3 years.
Yeah, I think so. I think it seems inevitable that he's gonna get it. Just the focus he has for this tournament, a singular focus that he wants to win it, and especially this week, it almost felt like he had everything behind him. His first coach passing away and all the emotion that went with it. But I do think that Novak, maybe in one of the next couple of years, I'm going to say 2 years from now, so I'll give Rafa his 9th title, but then 2015, I feel Novak Djokovic will complete that career Golden Slam, and then, I think he's going to hit double-digit slams, and that's remarkable, right? 3 players in this generation. The Urban Tennis Network podcast always likes to, put in some tech news and social media news. And I think over the French Open, we kind of saw, the next phase of how technology is integrated into tennis. And that's basically becoming the main tool in a protest. So maybe we will not have those, huge fits on court that were known for John McEnroe in the past, Jimmy Connors. Maybe it's more of the quiet protest where, in this case, Sergei Stakhovsky, a men's player, actually disagreed with the call. He thought the ball was out. It was called in. He took out his iPhone during the change, took a picture, and posted it to his followers. So just talk about how, the wrinkles of technology maybe are changing the way tennis protests happen, and is that a loss to that, I guess, the people who enjoy, the occasional umpire-player feud?
Yeah, I guess it is, but then that's how a lot of arguments are changing, right? I mean, all arguments need proof now. Like whether, like the common saying on the internet, picks or didn't happen. So like you saw here, he got the picks, and he's like, even if he didn't win the argument at the time, he wants to feel that and show it to everyone that he was in the right and he should have won the argument.
Yeah, I tend to agree. We're almost nearing the end of this episode, and like always, we like to end with some certain games and highlights of the week. So we're going to start off with the ever-popular game of volleys. Basically, the two of us are going to be faced with a this or that question, and we're going to choose one of them and, briefly describe why we chose it. So let's start off. Most of these questions are going to be about the French Open. So what Tommy impressed you more, Robredo or Haas?
I'm going to go with Tommy Haas because I think Haas gets the tiebreak because of the large fan following he's had. So he'll be able to create excitement on the court and create it off the court. Always gets a +1 in my books.
And I'm going to go with Tommy Robredo because he was basically left for dead last year, ranking over 500. And this week, in his charge, 3 matches, he was down 2 sets to love, and he came back. So Tommy Robredo, definitely a winner for me this week. We all know that Serena Williams put a beat down on Sarah Errani in the semifinals. So we ask, what do you think Sarah Errani was thinking about in her blowout? Dinner plans or her doubles match?
I'm going to say here dinner plans because, your doubles match, you can calmly play that the same day as your singles match, right? So, and it's calmly just working out with your partner, right? But your dinner plans, like that's coming out right after. You got to think about, okay, this is exactly what I want to do to get my mind off of what happened here. So dinner makes most logical sense here.
Definitely, I agree. Dinner plans. She's the number 1 ranked doubles player. I don't think she was thinking about that. I think she was thinking about getting off court and probably getting some food in her. Okay, lastly, we're going to have a little fun, and this may be a little controversial.
Oh my God.
Who would you rather have as your tennis coach? John Tomic, Bernard's dad, and one who's been alleged of a little assault? Or Dr. Bartoli, Marion Bartoli's father and coach, and all-out maniac if you watch him ever coach from the stands. So who would you rather have?
Well, I'd rather have Dr. Bartoli because as a doctor, I don't know what he practiced, but I assume he'll know a little bit about biology, so he'll be able to push you like really hard, maybe even abusive sometimes, be controversial like that, but he'll push you to a point that he thinks will be within your biological limit, I assume.
Yeah, and I'm going to agree. I think Dr. Bartoli is one of the most entertaining coaches to watch. If you've ever watched him in the stands, his wrists are moving on in and out, and then it's just a fun match when Bartoli's involved all around. Okay, the last thing we do is the social media highlight of the week. And because we were at the French Open, and because Rafa Nadal won 8 times, I'm going to have to pick the hashtag unbelievable, but instead of the B, an 8. He had that very fast on him. It was online, and it was a great way to kind of pick up and start the conversation around the 8 championship. So the social media highlight of the week is the Rafa Nadal camps. Hashtag unbelievable with an 8. Thanks for listening to this episode 2. We'll try to be back right before Wimbledon. Grass court tennis now, folks. The most beautiful and oldest of the styles of tennis. So we'll see you then. Thanks. This has been episode 2. There's smoke on these courts.